I've seen nations rise. I've seen them fall. I've seen weak leaders try to look strong, and I've seen strong people buried by weak thinking. But let me tell you something that the world needs to hear loud and clear today. Pakistan is not weak. It's not small. And it's not finished. Pakistan, if it chooses faith over fear, courage over compromise, and mission over emotion, will become the Asian tiger. And not someday, very soon. Because you don't need permission to be great. You just need the guts to decide. And let me say it like it is. Pakistan has the brain, it has the brawn, and it's got the blessing. But you've got to stop acting like a tenant in your own destiny. You've got to start acting like an owner. It's your time now. The greatest empires in history weren't built by people crying over who liked them. They were built by people who detached from fear, from noise, from the desperate need to be accepted. You want to know what spiritual power is? It's when you can walk through fire and not feel the burn because your purpose is so much bigger than your pain. This country has been pushed. It's been tested. But I'll tell you something. Every great nation has its moment of divine reckoning, a moment when it stops explaining itself to the world, stops apologizing for its dreams, and says, you know what? We deserve to lead. We were made to lead. That moment is here. That moment is now. But hear this. You cannot rise while clinging to weakness. And weakness is not poverty. Weakness is the mindset that says, we're not ready. Weakness is being controlled by what others think, what others want, what others say. That's not humility, it's surrender. And Pakistan doesn't surrender. Not now, not ever. Detach. Emotionally, spiritually, mentally, detach from the doubts, the distractions, the dependence. You weren't put on this earth to be desperate. You were put here to dominate, not by force, but by vision, by clarity, by divine direction. The Asian tigers weren't created by luck. They were created by leaders who believed and people who sacrificed. And Pakistan has that. It's always had that. And when you understand your value, when you understand your role in this world, you stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to fit in. You start to rise. And when a nation rises spiritually, economically, emotionally, it becomes unstoppable. The currency changes. The confidence returns. The youth believe again. The world takes notice. You're not waiting on foreign aid. You're waiting on a spiritual upgrade. A moment where you shake the dust off and say, we are done living beneath our calling. Detachment isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's strength. And Pakistan must now walk in that strength, not because it's convenient, but because it's required. You don't beg for greatness. You command it. You prepare for it. You walk like it's already yours. The world listens to those who speak with conviction, and Pakistan must now speak not with complaint, but with conviction, because the Asian tiger is not a dream anymore. It's knocking on the door. All that's left is to open it. Greatness is not something passed down like a family heirloom or handed out like a charity gift. It doesn't come to those who sit and wait. It doesn't come because of history or tradition or even potential. Greatness is seized, claimed by those who believe with everything in them that they were made for more. It starts in the mind, it takes root in the heart, and then it shows itself in action. The reason why some individuals, some nations, some movements break through while others stay stuck is because of one simple truth. They believe they are destined for something bigger. They don't hope. They don't wish. They know, and that knowing changes everything. When a person or a nation walks with the belief that they are chosen for greatness, they carry themselves differently. They don't panic in chaos. They don't collapse under criticism. They don't get distracted by the noise of lesser voices. They're focused. They're centered. They're detached from insecurity and fueled by destiny. This belief is not arrogance. It's not ego. It's alignment with purpose. And purpose is the most powerful fuel in the world. When you know you were made for something more, you stop settling for what's around you and start building what's inside you. That's the dividing line between those who rise and those who disappear into mediocrity. It's not money. It's not resources. It's not even connections. It's belief. Do you believe you're here just to survive? Or do you believe you're here to lead, to transform, to shift the story? That belief becomes your lens. It shapes your choices. It sets your standard, and over time it carves out a new reality. Nations don't rise because of size. They rise because of vision, because someone believed they could be more, and they never back down from that belief. Look at any movement that changed the world, any moment where history bent in a new direction, and you'll find that belief was always the ignition point. It started with someone who looked at the impossible and said, why not? Someone who refused to be defined by limits, someone who decided that circumstances would not be their master. That's how greatness is born. It doesn't come to the comfortable, it comes to the courageous. And here's the secret the world doesn't talk about. Once you believe you are made for greatness, the doors start opening, not because of magic, but because of alignment. Your energy shifts, your choices shift, and the world starts responding. You move differently, you speak differently, you stop waiting to be validated, you start leading. That's what Pakistan needs. That's what every bold vision requires. People who believe deeply, fiercely, unshakably, that they are here for something extraordinary. Greatness is not inherited. Greatness is claimed, and it is only claimed by those who believe they were born to carry it. Spiritual and emotional detachment is one of the greatest signs of power, not weakness. It is not indifference, it is mastery. When you are emotionally detached, you are not ruled by the highs or the lows. You are not swayed by every opinion, not broken by every loss, and not inflated by every victory. You become grounded, centered, and unshakable. That's what true confidence looks like. It's not loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. Detachment allows you to rise above chaos, to walk through storms without being soaked by the rain, and to stay focused on your mission while the world screams for your attention. Most people misunderstand this concept. They think detachment means you stop caring, but in reality, it means you start caring more, just not in the way others expect. You stop caring about distractions. You stop being moved by drama, flattery, or insult. You care deeply about your purpose, your principles, your progress. You no longer seek validation. You no longer chase applause. You don't need permission to move forward. That's strength. And that strength is what separates leaders from followers, visionaries from doubters, builders from beggars. In the life of a person or a nation, the emotional and spiritual detachment is a necessity for elevation. When you're too tied to what others think, you stay small. When you constantly react to noise, you lose your focus. When your mood depends on what's happening around you, you're not in control, you're controlled. But when you detach, you step into power. You can see clearly. You can make decisions with precision. You're not chasing approval. You're executing a vision. You rise above the battlefield, and from that higher ground, everything looks different. Pakistan, like any great nation in transition, must learn this. The journey to becoming an Asian tiger is not just economic, it's psychological, it's spiritual. You cannot roar like a tiger while begging like a cub. You cannot lead while needing to be liked. You must detach from the fear of criticism, from the hunger for recognition, from the weight of old wounds and outdated narratives. Only then can you operate from strength, from wisdom, from clarity. The world follows those who are focused. The world listens to those who don't flinch. That kind of presence doesn't come from ego, it comes from detachment. To build something great, you must walk alone at times. You must be misunderstood. You must resist the urge to explain yourself constantly. Detachment gives you that ability to create space for vision to breathe. It creates silence for direction to speak. It gives your spirit the oxygen it needs to lead rather than react. You don't lead by emotion, you lead by conviction. And conviction is the fruit of detachment, a soul that is free, focused, and committed to its divine assignment. That's where the future begins. That's where true confidence lives. That's where greatness is born. The world does not respect weakness, and it never will. It respects strength, it respects order, and most of all, it respects identity. A nation that knows who it is, that walks in pride and clarity about its values, its culture, its mission, commands attention. Respect begins at home. A nation that respects itself teaches the world how to treat it. When a people take pride in their heritage, in their land, in their potential, they build a future that cannot be denied. Identity is not just about the past, it's about ownership of destiny. When you know who you are, you stop begging to be included and start demanding to be noticed. Too many nations, too many leaders, too many people crumble because they want acceptance more than impact. But the truth is, no one can accept you until you accept yourself. You cannot rise with borrowed pride or imported principles. You must rise from your roots, stand tall in your truth. When a nation believes in itself, believes in the beauty of its history and the power of its future, it becomes immovable. It becomes a force. That belief turns into action. That belief turns into dignity. And that dignity is magnetic. It draws attention, respect, and influence. Pakistan must understand that it cannot become an Asian tiger by mimicking others. It will not rise by copying models that do not honor its spirit. It must rise on its own terms, with its own identity, with its own story. That's not just possible, it's powerful. The world has already seen what happens when a nation stands firmly in self-respect. It attracts allies. It earns strategic space. It builds from within. The soil becomes fertile, not just for crops, but for innovation, for stability, for prosperity. That's what pride does. That's what identity unlocks. But here's the truth. Identity is not found in slogans. It is found in sacrifice, in discipline, in vision. When a nation respects itself, it doesn't allow corruption to rot its institutions. It doesn't tolerate mediocrity in its leadership. It doesn't celebrate weakness. It calls for excellence from every corner of society, from the classroom to the courtroom to the Capitol. Respect becomes the standard. And from that standard, greatness grows. You build infrastructure, you build minds, you build morals because you believe you're worth building. Pakistan has every reason to respect itself. Its people are brilliant. Its resources are rich. Its legacy is deep. But that respect must become policy. It must become posture. It must become daily behavior. It must be seen in how you treat your own people before you demand the world to treat you right. No one will invest in a nation that doesn't invest in itself. No one will believe in a future that the nation doesn't fight for. And you respect your identity when you carry yourself like you belong on the world stage. You start to move with purpose. You don't wait for the future to happen. You start shaping it. That's how nations earn respect, and that's how they rise. You don't become an Asian tiger by sitting at the edge of the global table waiting for someone to hand you leftovers. You don't become a force by begging for aid, for attention, or for validation. You become one by commanding your own space, building your own wealth, securing your own interests, and walking with the mindset of ownership. It's about power, not pity. It's about self-reliance, not dependence. Great nations don't rise from foreign handouts. They rise from inner conviction and national discipline. If Pakistan truly wants to become an Asian tiger, it must shift from the psychology of waiting to the psychology of creating. No one builds greatness on borrowed confidence. The Asian tigers earned their position through fierce economic planning, aggressive reforms, hard decisions, and most importantly, a collective belief that they deserve to win. They didn't apologize for being ambitious. They didn't fear standing out. They went all in on education, on innovation, on trade, on productivity. They weren't begging for scraps. They were designing their own feast. That's the kind of clarity Pakistan must adopt. It's not about being desperate for inclusion. It's about becoming too essential to be ignored. When a nation gets used to waiting for others to solve its problems, it loses the muscle to solve them on its own. It loses the will to compete. It falls into a cycle of waiting, blaming, and reacting. That cycle kills greatness. It kills initiative. You cannot roar like a tiger when your economic strategy is based on survival. Tigers don't survive, they dominate. Pakistan has every tool it needs to become a dominant player in Asia, a massive youth population, natural resources, strategic geography, and resilient entrepreneurs. But the tools must be used with precision and pride, not with passivity. Commanding the table means rewriting the story. It means building institutions that don't collapse under pressure. It means investing in human capital, real education, real skills, real innovation. It means cutting through red tape and corruption, not just complaining about it. It means leadership that doesn't look to donors for direction, but looks inward for courage. And once that shift happens, once Pakistan decides to stop reacting and start creating, it will see doors open that were always within reach, but never fully claimed. Commanding the table also means refusing to play small. It means knowing what you bring to the world and delivering it with confidence. No one gives space to the timid. They give space to the prepared, to the strategic, to the relentless. Pakistan must show that it can not only dream of progress, but execute it, that it can turn potential into performance, that it's not just asking to participate, it's prepared to lead. This transformation doesn't come from policy papers or speeches alone. It comes from mindset, a collective shift from desperation to dignity, from dependency to direction, from waiting for opportunity to becoming the opportunity. That's how you become the tiger in the room, not the one that waits for food, but the one that sets the terms. True leadership is not about reacting to emotions, noise, or pressure. It's about staying centered on a greater purpose that cannot be shaken. Emotions are powerful, but they are not reliable guides. They fluctuate, they deceive, they distract. A leader who reacts emotionally will always be a step behind, always playing defense, always at the mercy of external forces. But a leader driven by divine purpose operates from a place of calm authority, not chaos. He is not pulled in 1,000 directions by every crisis, every comment, or every challenge. He is locked in on the mission, and that gives him clarity. That clarity becomes strength. When nations are led by emotion, policy becomes impulsive, decisions become reactive, and long-term progress is sacrificed for short-term noise. One moment of public anger leads to hasty declarations. One wave of international pressure leads to compromises that damage sovereignty. That is not leadership. That is surrender wearing a mask of urgency. Emotion can help stir a crowd, but it cannot build a country. Feelings are fleeting. Purpose is eternal. And when leadership is anchored in purpose, it doesn't get flustered by delay or defeat. It sees beyond the moment. It sees a blueprint when others only see the chaos. Pakistan, in its journey to become an Asian tiger, must raise a generation of leaders who operate from vision, not reaction, from principle, not popularity, from divine insight, not emotional turmoil. The enemy of strong leadership is not criticism, it's distraction. A leader who fears being disliked or who changes direction every time the public mood shifts is not leading, he is being led. He is not guiding the nation, he is echoing its confusion. But when a leader is spiritually grounded, emotionally steady, and purpose-driven, he becomes a compass in the storm. People follow clarity, they follow peace, they follow conviction. This is not a call for cold-heartedness or indifference. It is a call for depth, for maturity, for wisdom. Emotion must be acknowledged, but it cannot be allowed to drive. Anger may highlight a problem, but it cannot design the solution. Fear may be a signal, but it cannot write the plan. A true leader listens to emotion, but answers with purpose. That's how nations are stabilized. That's how trust is built. That's how lasting movements are born. Pakistan has been through emotional storms internally and externally. But it is now time for leadership that doesn't waver, leadership that doesn't get distracted by applause or shaken by criticism, leadership that is not trying to survive another headline, but trying to shape a century. That level of leadership requires emotional detachment. Not to be cold, but to be clear. Because only when you detach from the chaos can you truly lead through it. Only when you rise above emotion can you carry the weight of vision. The future is not for the emotionally unstable. It is for the grounded, the focused, and the unwavering. That is the kind of leadership Pakistan must now embrace. Leadership that is not moved by the winds of the moment, but anchored in the purpose of destiny. Victim mentality is the greatest chain a nation can place on itself. It is invisible, but it is heavy. It keeps people grounded in fear, resentment, and self-pity. It makes them believe that their failure is always someone else's fault. It convinces them that they are powerless, that progress is impossible unless someone else allows it. And as long as that mindset rules, no real progress can take place. Pakistan cannot afford to walk in that shadow any longer. It must choose destiny over dependency, power over pity, and responsibility over blame, because a nation that sees itself as a victim will never step into victory. There are moments in every country's story where it must decide who it is going to be. Will it be a prisoner of its past or a pioneer of its future? Will it cry about injustice or rise above it? Will it wait for the world to rescue it, or will it rebuild itself with its own hands, brick by brick, soul by soul? The choice is not easy, but it is necessary. Victim mentality offers comfort, but it robs a nation of its greatness. It says we've been wronged, so we can't rise. Destiny says we've been tested, so now we must rise. That difference in thinking separates nations that grow from nations that collapse. Dependency weakens the soul of a nation. It teaches people to wait instead of work. It turns citizens into beggars and leaders into puppets. It doesn't just destroy economies, it destroys confidence. It doesn't just harm policy, it poisons belief. The strength of any nation begins in the mind of its people. When you believe you are dependent, you act dependent. But when you believe you are chosen for something greater, you start living differently. You start leading, creating, building. You stop complaining and start commanding. You stop asking why us and start declaring why not us. Pakistan's history has been filled with challenges, setbacks, and betrayals. That is true. But greatness is not about what happened to you. It's about what you do next. The pain of the past must become fuel, not a prison. It must become fire, not a funeral. Nations that rise don't erase their struggles, they overcome them, they use them, they build from them, and in doing so, they prove that destiny is not denied to those who refuse to be defined by defeat. This transformation begins with language, with mindset, with the way people see themselves. Pakistan must raise a generation that speaks from strength, not scarcity, that sees adversity not as a curse, but as preparation, that sees opportunity not as charity, but as their divine right. No more blaming the world, no more waiting for permission. The future will not be handed over. It must be taken with courage and clarity. That requires letting go of the victim story. That requires embracing the destiny story. And once that shift happens, the chains fall off, the roar returns, and a new chapter begins, not in pain, but in power. You don't build a nation on fear. You build it on vision, on values, and on a mission that's bigger than any crisis. Fear creates fragile structures, quick fixes, and temporary illusions of progress. It makes people reactive instead of strategic. It makes leaders play defense when they should be building umpires. Fear might win you silence, but it will never win you strength. Nations that operate out of fear are constantly looking over their shoulder, constantly apologizing, constantly compromising what they believe in. That is not how greatness is built. That is not how history is made. A nation that fears the world can never lead the world. A nation that fears change can never command the future. Fear weakens the very spirit of a people. It clouds judgment, breeds division, and spreads like a virus through culture, media, and institutions. It causes nations to underachieve, to play small, to dream within limits. But vision, true, clear, unwavering vision, does the opposite. It lifts the soul. It energizes the people. It calls them higher beyond their circumstances, beyond their excuses. Vision plants something permanent in the heart of a nation. It whispers, you were made for more. And that whisper, when believed, becomes a roar. When you look at the nations that have truly risen to greatness, they didn't do it because everything was perfect. They did it because someone had a vision so powerful that it pulled people forward through pain, through sacrifice, through opposition. Pakistan must not be driven by the fear of instability, the fear of judgment, the fear of what the world thinks. It must be driven by the vision of what it was meant to become. The world follows strength. It follows purpose. It follows nations that know where they're going and refuse to be shaken on the way there. Building on values means you don't sell out your principles for short-term comfort. It means you hold the line even when it's hard. Values create culture, and culture creates continuity. Without values, you may gain money, you may gain influence, but you lose the soul of your nation. And when the soul is gone, everything else crumbles. Pakistan's foundation must be its values: faith, family, resilience, sacrifice. These are not weaknesses. These are weapons. These are tools for nation building. When values are strong, storms can come, but they won't shake the structure. And then there's mission. A nation without a mission is a nation without momentum. It becomes reactive. It becomes uncertain. But when a mission is clear, even the hardest path becomes bearable. The people know why they're building. They know why they're sacrificing. They know what they're fighting for. That's how you move a generation. That's how you awaken a people. You give them something worth living for and something even worth dying for. That's what Pakistan needs now. Not fear of collapse, but the fire of a calling, a higher mission, a divine purpose. Fear will always try to rule, but when vision, values, and mission take over, fear has no place left to hide. Every great nation that ever rose had to go through a moment of painful detachment from internal weakness and external control. It is not possible to claim greatness while still clutching the things that keep you small. You cannot fly while dragging the weight of insecurity, corruption, confusion, and dependency. To become truly strong, a nation must first recognize what is weakening it from within. It must be willing to cut ties with the habits, systems, and mindsets that are silently stealing its strength. This process isn't glamorous, it's not popular, but it is necessary. Greatness demands separation. It demands refinement, and only those with the courage to detach from the broken can ever walk into the beautiful. Internal weakness is the quiet killer. It shows up as division, disunity, compromise, laziness, and moral decay. It breeds systems that don't serve the people, leaders who lack backbone, and institutions that crumble when pressure comes. If a nation wants to rise, it must first confront this weakness, not hide it, not excuse it, but stare it in the face and say, "You don't belong here anymore." That is the moment when transformation begins, not in global meetings, not in foreign investment, but in the soul of the nation itself, when it decides it will no longer tolerate what keeps it weak. But internal detachment alone is not enough. There must also be a cutting away from external control. A nation cannot lead while it is being led from the outside. It cannot create its own future while dancing to the tune of others. Yes, alliances matter. Yes, diplomacy is important, but sovereignty is sacred. Pakistan cannot become an Asian tiger while being treated like a dependent state. It must break the psychological and political chains of foreign control. This does not mean isolation. It means independence. It means decisions made from strength, not pressure. It means economic strategies based on national interest, not foreign agendas. The nations that rose, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, had to make difficult internal reforms and resist external manipulation. They didn't beg, they didn't complain. They transformed, they detached from the old and walked boldly into the new. And that's the road Pakistan must now take. It must clean house, fix its foundation, and then tell the world we are no longer available for exploitation. We are ready to lead. Detachment is strength. It is the ability to walk away from the things that no longer serve your future. It's not rebellion, it's responsibility. It's the mature decision to outgrow what no longer fits. That is what Pakistan must do now. It must choose self-respect over comfort, sovereignty over sympathy, transformation over tradition. And once that choice is made, not with emotion, but with clarity, nothing can stop the rise. The noise may grow louder, the resistance may increase, but the future will finally begin to move in alignment. The chains will fall, the vision will sharpen, and the roar will return, not because permission was given, but because weakness was left behind. Confidence in a nation starts with confidence in its people. And confidence in people begins with something deeper than motivation. It begins with spiritual awakening. You cannot build a great country with people who do not believe in themselves. You cannot rise on a foundation of fear, confusion, and self-doubt. You need people who walk with purpose, who carry a sense of divine calling, who wake up every day knowing they are part of something greater than themselves. That kind of confidence cannot be manufactured with propaganda. It must be born from within. It must come from the soul of the people, and it must be nurtured through truth, vision, and leadership that calls them high. When a nation believes in itself, it stops copying others. It stops seeking constant approval. It starts creating. It starts building. It begins to walk with a steady hand, even in the middle of uncertainty. But if the people are not awakened, if they are asleep to their value, asleep to their identity, asleep to their responsibility, then no amount of money, policy, or structure will matter. The strength of a nation begins in the spirit of its citizens, and if they are weak, the nation is weak. If they are strong, the nation is unshakable. That is the root. That is the seed. Pakistan is filled with potential. Its youth are gifted. Its people are resilient. Its soil is rich. But potential alone doesn't build destiny. It must be unlocked by belief. And belief is not just emotional, it's spiritual. It is something sacred. It's the understanding that you were created with intention, that your presence here is not accidental. When people begin to see themselves through that lens, their entire posture changes. They stop waiting to be saved. They start becoming the solution. They stop complaining. They start creating. They stop echoing fear. They start speaking with authority. Every strong economy, every booming innovation hub, every stable government began with a change in how people saw themselves. That inner transformation paved the way for outer results. Pakistan does not lack ideas. It does not lack talent. It does not lack opportunity. What it needs now is a shift in self-perception, a shaking of the soul, a spiritual earthquake that reminds every citizen, you were not born to follow, you were born to lead. You were not made to hide, you were made to build. You were not called to survive, you were called to shape history. This is not about empty pride. This is about sacred purpose, about awakening the confidence that has been buried under decades of disappointment, division, and doubt. That confidence must be restored not through arrogance, but through truth, through clarity, through vision that doesn't just tell people what they can do, but reminds them who they already are. Once the people awaken, once they believe again, once they walk with the certainty of purpose, everything changes. Economies shift, institutions strengthen, culture begins to rise. Because when the people stand up inside, the nation stands up outside. That is how confidence becomes power. And that is how power becomes progress. Pakistan's moment is not somewhere far in the future. It is now. It's not a distant dream that may or may not come true. It's an unfolding reality waiting to be claimed. But that moment will not wait forever. Destiny does not knock on the door forever. It waits for those bold enough to open it. Pakistan must understand that it is standing on the edge of something massive, something historic. But crossing over requires belief, action, and courage. Too often nations delay greatness because they're waiting for perfect conditions, but nothing great was ever built in perfect circumstances. It was built in bold moments of decision in times when uncertainty loomed large, but vision loomed larger. The idea that Pakistan must keep preparing, keep hoping, keep waiting has to be broken. Preparation is good, but if it becomes a hiding place, it becomes a trap. Nations don't need more time. They need more will. They need more urgency. Because the longer you wait to embrace your moment, the more it slips away. Opportunity doesn't beg. It passes by the hesitant and answers the bold. The difference between those who rise and those who stay behind is not resources. It's readiness to act when the time is right. And for Pakistan, that time is now. This is a season to shift from survival mode to strategy, from reaction to leadership, from being a spectator of global change to becoming a shaper of it. Pakistan's population is young, energetic, and full of talent. Its location is strategic. Its markets are ready. Its voice is rising. What more is needed? The moment is here, but to seize it, the nation must break the mental walls of fear, of hesitation, of small thinking. The country must realize that waiting for the perfect wave is pointless if the boat is never launched. It's time to sail. It's time to move. This mindset shift must begin everywhere, from the street to the schools, from the media to the ministries. People must stop speaking in the language of one day and start declaring today. The message must change. The narrative must change. Instead of asking, can we, start saying we are. Pakistan must walk like a nation with purpose, talk like a nation with confidence, and act like a nation that knows the future already has its name written on it. That's not arrogance, it's alignment with destiny. Great nations aren't just born, they are activated, they're awakened, they are stirred from within. And the ones that win are the ones who move when the time calls. The time is not tomorrow. It's not next year. It's not when the conditions feel perfect. It's now. The ideas must turn into action. The passion must turn into plans. The pride must turn into performance. This moment has come to Pakistan, not by chance, not by accident, but because it's time. The only question is, will the nation answer? Will it rise? Because destiny never knocks twice in the same way. And right now, the future is waiting. So now the path is clear. The message is undeniable. Pakistan is not weak. It is not lost, and it is certainly not finished. It is standing on the edge of transformation spiritually, economically, and historically. But this is not just about policies or promises. This is about awakening. This is about detaching from fear, from doubt, from dependency, and rising with a roar that can no longer be ignored. The time for waiting is over. The season for small thinking is done. The excuses must be buried and the greatness must be born. You don't ask the world for permission to be powerful. You become powerful. You don't plead for recognition. You command respect. And you don't dream of becoming the Asian tiger someday. You decide to be it now with conviction, with clarity, with courage. Because the world doesn't change when the weak complain. It changes when the bold believe. And Pakistan must now believe deeply, fiercely, relentlessly, not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because it is destined. The roar has been silent long enough. Now it's time for it to be heard. The world is watching, history is listening, and destiny is calling. Pakistan, rise and answer.